The story of the Trojan War begins when the Trojan prince Paris kidnapped Helen, the queen of Sparta and the most beautiful woman in the world. After a love story between Helen and the young prince, Paris kidnapped Helen and took her from Sparta to Troy. This act was a declaration of war on Sparta and the Greeks, as it angered her husband, King Menelaus. Menelaus, determined to regain his wife and avenge the Trojans, turned to his brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae and the most powerful Greek king, for help. Agamemnon was able to gather a huge coalition of Greek kings and warriors, including heroes such as Achilles and Odysseus. This formidable coalition sailed to Troy, determined to reclaim Helen at any cost, thus beginning the siege of Troy that would last a full 10 years. When the huge Greek army reached the shores of Troy, a long and arduous siege of the city began that lasted for 10 years. Troy was well fortified, and its high walls were impenetrable. During these years, many heroic battles and tragedies recorded in legends occurred. Initially, the Greeks, led by Agamemnon, were superior thanks to their great heroes such as Achilles, who was considered the greatest Greek warrior. Achilles, with his courage and strength, struck terror into the hearts of the Trojans. But the siege was not easy, as the Trojans showed great courage in defending their city, led by Prince Hector, who was considered Troy's greatest warrior and its hope for victory. One of the important events during the siege was Achilles' anger and withdrawal from the fight. This happened after a sharp dispute between him and Agamemnon. Agamemnon took a war maiden named Briseis, who was Achilles' share, angering Achilles and causing him to withdraw from the fight in protest. This withdrawal had a major impact on the course of the war, as the Greeks lost one of their strongest warriors. While Achilles was away from the battlefield, the Greeks suffered many losses, and the Trojans grew stronger thanks to Hector's leadership. The Trojans had managed to push the Greeks to the brink of retreat, but things changed dramatically when Patroclus, Achilles' close friend, decided to don Achilles' armor and return to the fight to motivate the Greeks. Patroclus succeeded in inspiring the Greek soldiers and launched a counterattack against the Trojans, but in the end he was killed by Hector. The death of Patroclus was the spark that brought Achilles back to the battlefield, where he returned with hatred and overwhelming anger to avenge the death of his dear friend. With Achilles' return to the battlefield, the course of the war changed dramatically. Achilles was filled with anger and grief over the death of his friend Patroclus, and decided to take revenge on Hector at any cost. This highly anticipated confrontation between Achilles and Hector was one of the most important events of the Trojan War. Achilles took to the battlefield, challenging Hector to confrontation. Hector knew that this battle would be fateful, but he was unable to avoid it. He knew that Achilles was the greatest Greek warrior, and that he would face a ruthless opponent. Despite this, Hector stood bravely before the walls of Troy, ready to fight. The confrontation between the two heroes began in an epic manner. They exchanged blows and attacks with skill, but in the end, it was Achilles' strength and speed that prevailed. Achilles was able to kill Hector after a fierce battle, which left the Trojans stunned and deeply sad. After many years of sieges and bloody battles, the Greeks realized that victory over Troy would not be possible by military force alone, so they resorted to a cunning trick that had never occurred to the Trojans. The idea was the brainchild of Odysseus, one of the smartest and most cunning Greek heroes. The Greeks decided to build a huge wooden horse, hollow inside, and inside it they hid a group of their best warriors. The goal of this trick was to make the Trojans believe that they had surrendered and left the siege. The Greeks built the horse and called it the Trojan horse. Then they pretended to withdraw and left the horse as a peace gift to the Trojans. The next morning, the Trojans found the horse at the gates of their city. Some thought it was a peace gift from the Greeks, while others warned it was an ominous gift. However, The Trojans, after years of siege and fighting, were tired and looking for any sign of hope that the war would end. Eventually, they decided to introduce the horse into the city as a symbol of victory and peace. The Trojans rejoiced and entered into loud celebrations, believing that the war was finally over and that the Greeks had withdrawn. They partied all night long, relaxed and feeling safe. They never expected that night to be the last of their lives. In the depths of the night, while the city was deep in sleep, the Greek warriors hidden inside the horse came out and opened the city gates to the rest of their army, which had returned stealthily under the cover of darkness. Greek forces entered the city and began a comprehensive destruction of Troy. While the city was fast asleep after the wild celebrations, the Greek warriors hidden inside the wooden horse would sneak out of the horse and open the city gates to the rest of the Greek army. At that critical moment, the Greek army returned to Troy under the cover of darkness, ready to carry out its final plan. The Greeks systematically destroyed the city, setting fire to buildings and killing its inhabitants in the streets and homes. Troy, which had withstood 10 years of siege, was now collapsing in a single night of chaos and destruction. Thus ended the legendary Trojan War, leaving behind a deep mark in history and mythology. This story taught us about courage, sacrifice, deception, and the influence of fate. From the fall of Troy to the journeys of returning heroes, these events remain a source of inspiration for literature and art throughout the ages. Thank you for watching this video about one of the greatest wars in Greek mythology. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more epic and historical stories. See you in the next video.